All right. Today is Tuesday, the 3rd of May, 2016. We're here at the JCC in Dallas. I'm interviewing Dot Haymann as part of the Roots to Boots project. And Dot, what I'd like to do is start by asking you to tell me what you can about your grandparents on both the maternal and paternal side, where they came from prior to their settling in South Africa.
Well, it's fairly simple on my mother's side. My grandparents on my mother's side were born on the Austro-Czech border in a small town. They lived there for many years. My grandfather was an attorney, and the great-grandparents were merchants. They moved partly to Vienna as the war started, and the family consisted of 3 siblings. My mother, she had a sister and a brother. Mm-hmm. When the war started, the parents suggested that their children leave Europe, and my aunt, my late aunt, my mother's sister, was the first to go. She went to Israel, mm-hmm. and she settled as a young, in her 20s, I believe. She went very Zionistic. She went to live in Israel. Her sister, my mother, and her brother still stayed on. My late uncle was the youngest of the 3 children. He tried to get out of Europe. He was a teenager, a young teenager. I think he was about 13. Got out somehow and managed to make his way to Israel. My aunt took care of him. She basically brought him up. My mother tried to leave Europe. She was on one of the last boats going out of, she went from Austria, from Vienna, to Germany, got on a boat, and was going to go to Israel. The boat got all the way to Israel, and the British turned the boat round. The boat was sunk in the Mediterranean, and everybody on the boat, or the people that survived, managed to get onto the island of Rhodes, mm-hmm. where my mother lived for 3 years in between the olive groves. The Italians eventually captured the island of Rhodes, mm-hmm. rounded up all these people and took them to a camp in Italy. She was in this camp in Italy, I don't know how long, maybe a year, and the British liberated Italy. And my mother spoke many languages. She was an educated woman. So they co-opted her to work in the naval dockyards in a place called Taranto, which is the southern part of Italy, mm-hmm. right? Which is where she went to work. My father grew up in Yugoslavia in a place called Zagreb. Mm-hmm. I know very little about his history because he absolutely never discussed a word of it. His was very... very secretive, not even secretive, he just tried to put it out of his mind what had happened in Europe. He worked for the Yugoslav resistance, he was an engineer. He eventually got captured by the Italians, also got put in a camp. And when the British came to to Italy, they liberated this camp and they needed engineers, so they sent him to the same military dockyard down in Taranto. That is where my parents met. They wanted to get out of Europe at all cost, and they applied for exit visas, and the only place the British would let them go was to a British colony. They originally wanted to come to the States, but they weren't allowed to do so. Mm-hmm. They went to the first place they were offered, which was South Africa. They were not very happy to go there, but that's where they went. And they lived in Johannesburg, South Africa, and that's where I was born and grew up.
And so your father was an engineer?
Yes, electrical and mechanical engineer.
Did he establish his own business there?
No, he worked for a company called Hume Pipe, which made concrete sewer pipes and that kind of stuff. They really had a very, very, very hard time in South Africa. They didn't have any money or anything because of the war. Having come from Yugoslavia and Austria, they never ever got any war reparations or anything. They basically lived on what they earned, which was not very much. My mother had severe health problems because of what had happened during during the war. She landed up with all kinds of heart issues, and she died very young. She died, I think she was maybe 60 when she died. My father stayed in South Africa, remarried, and died in his late 80s. And I grew up in Johannesburg, went to school in Johannesburg, went to a convent from first grade through matric, and then applied for a scholarship, which I got. And the scholarship sent you to the States for a year. So I came to live in the States. I lived in Ohio for a year. But the terms of the scholarship demanded that you go back. And I had dated my husband. Well, not really dated. We'd known each other. We both went to a youth group at one of the temples. So we knew each other from there. And we used to go to the movies together, that kind of thing. And when I came back from the year in the States, within a month we were engaged. Within 6 months we were married. My husband's family is very different. His family...
I'm going to ask your husband about his family separately.
Oh, okay.
So let's go back to your family. In terms of your childhood, do you have siblings?
I have a brother. I have one brother.
And is he older or younger?
He's a younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
He's very reclusive. He's an engineer as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was divorced. He was married, is divorced. He has one daughter.
So in your childhood, you said you went to a convent school.
Yes, from first grade through graduation.
Now, what was the decision-making process in your household to send you to a convent rather than to a Jewish day school?
Well, my father's attitude was, having been Jewish, he suffered enough, and he really didn't want to know anything about religion or anything to do with religion. And if he could deny the fact that he was Jewish, he did.
Mm-hmm.
And he felt that the place to get a good education was not in a public school. He felt that a convent would offer a good education, and that's why he sent me to a convent.
So was there any religion in the home whatsoever?
Very, very little. My father had a mother who was in South Africa. She was a little bit more religious. And it's very funny because I got contacted maybe 2 months ago by a lady who is living in Salt Lake City. Mm-hmm. She's of Israeli origin. And she turned around and she said, she's a cousin of mine. Oh. Right? Well, she and I both, we couldn't verify that we were cousins because her father had done similar things to my father, exactly the same thing. And when her father passed away recently, she found a letter. And my father's name was in the letter, and it said, "Dear cousin."
Ah.
So she tracked me down. We're very involved in the yeshiva and in many, many, many Jewish organizations here. Mm-hmm. And she called Texas Torah Institute, of which we are founding members and big supporters, and said she wanted to get hold of me. And they were very reluctant to give her a phone number, which they didn't. They gave me a phone number for her, and I called her and I said, "Look, I believe you want to get hold of me. Who are you? What do you want?" Mm-hmm. So she told me the story. I said, "Well, I've never heard of you." And she tells me that my late grandfather on my father's side may have been a rabbi. So I have no idea. We had absolutely zero information about that, so I don't know.
So you said that you were involved in a youth group when you were in...
Yes.
And what type of youth group was it?
I was involved in Habonim and B'nai Akiva, and in fact Daryl Marovitz, who lives here now,
yes, I know Daryl,
was my madrich.
Really?
Yes. So we go back a long, long, long way.
So you got involved in Zionistic organizations as a child?
And my mother, even though my father didn't approve, was very involved in WITSO, which is Hadassah and the Zionist organization. Right. So she was involved in that.
Mm-hmm. So at any time during your youth, did you have a desire to go to Israel?
Oh, absolutely, always. Mm-hmm. My late aunt lived there. She once came to visit in South Africa. And one of the first things that my husband and I did when we were married in August, end of August. In December, we went to Israel. Mm-hmm. That was in 1968. So it goes back a long way.
Yes.
And we've been to Israel many, 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 many times. And we're involved in a lot of projects in Israel and very much involved.
Did you ever think of living there?
Yes, we did. We had the actual opportunity to go and live in Israel. My husband was involved in the diamond business, and he had the opportunity to go and work for somebody that we knew in Israel. And having visited numerous times, I just didn't think it was a good fit for our family. But, I mean, we go regularly. We were just there 2 weeks ago. So we love Israel. We think it's an incredible place. We're big supporters. But living there is a very different thing to being as a visitor. My husband's brother lives in Israel now. He has got children there. He's got 23 grandkids, of which I think 5 in South Africa, the rest are all in Israel. So we go regularly. We're very involved.
So how old were you when you married?
18.
18.
Very young.
Very young. And how old was your husband?
He was 21.
21. And were you living in Johannesburg at that time, at Joburg? Okay.
Yes.
And did you stay there in that city?
We lived in Johannesburg until we immigrated to the States.
And what year was that?
1978.
Okay. So did you start your family in Johannesburg?
Oh, yes.
How many children do you have?
We have 3 kids, and they were all born in South Africa. They all live here now.
And what are their are their ages?
Sandy is my oldest one. She was born in 1969. Tracy is my middle daughter. She was born in 1970. And Gary is my youngest son. He was born in 1974.
And what types of schools did your children go to? Did they go to the
Public school.
They went to the public school.
They went to public school in South Africa, and when we came here, Gary went to the JCC, to kindergarten, and then to public school. And then my middle daughter actually graduated from Hockaday.
Okay. What was the reason that you and your husband decided to leave South Africa?
You're going to smile when I tell you the reason. We've always had our own companies, and we had a jewelry company, a very large jewelry company. We came to do a show in New York, and everybody asked us, where's your American office? We'd really never talked about immigrating, and I went back. I had 3 young kids at that point. I went back to South Africa, and my husband stayed. He couldn't see himself living in LA. He couldn't see himself living in New York. And we had a very good friend who was the city manager of Fort Worth. We'd met him in South Africa. He had done a sabbatical teaching at the university in Pretoria. And my husband traveled with him. He went to Asia with him. And this guy's 2 daughters, and he had the wife. And after he'd been in LA, he called this guy and said to him, look, Morris, you always said I should come to America. I hated New York. I hate LA. I'm going back. Won't you open an office for me? So this guy said, no, I won't open an office for you. I've just brought American Airlines to America, to Dallas. Come and see it and you'll like it. And my husband literally landed here, and within 3 days had decided to settle here. And called me and in the middle of the night and said to me, I want to see you in Dallas, Texas. I said, Dallas, where? We'd never ever talked about it. And he told me, I said to him, you're out of your mind, and I slammed the phone on him. We had 3 kids, we had a business, we had a house, we had 2 dogs, we had a housekeeper. So he called me back and he said, you've never told me no before. What's wrong with you? I said, you're out of your mind. He said, come, you'll like it. So I got on a plane and I came, and we never looked back.
Did you know any of the other South Africans here?
We were one of the very, very, very first people to arrive here. I met one South African when I came. I was given one name.
Who was that?
Darryl Strelitz. And I met, her husband was also the jewelry business. And I called up Darryl, and all she did was cry on the phone and tell me what a god-awful place this was.
Oh, no.
And how I better get out. If I can get out of here, go back, don't even stay. She hates it. So I really didn't get to know her. She just turned me off so much that she was just so negative.
Oh, dear.
So we lived here for a long time before I met any of the South Africans.
Really?
We were one of the very, very, very first to arrive here.
So how did you begin to get involved with the rest of the community as they immigrated to the country?
Well, what happened was we started a company here, and it was my husband and myself, and we had a diamond broking office in Park Central, which is basically off of LBJ.
Right, no, exactly.
And my husband used to go back to South Africa every third week because he had an office there and a factory there. And I would run whatever there was to run here. And on one of those trips back, he was complaining to the guys that he worked with that it's so hard, that he doesn't know anybody here. And one of the people that worked for us in South Africa, who was one of our apprentices, said, my cousin is looking to go to Texas. And his name was Basil Cohen, right? So his parents, Ben and Etty Cohen, were here. We met them, we liked them, and my husband said to Ben Cohen, if your son wants to join me, I'll teach him the business, which is what happened. And as a result of that, I would say, I think altogether we must have sponsored maybe 60 or 70 South African families.
Really?
I mean, a lot of them came because of direct exposure to us.
Oh, wonderful.
So that is how a lot of the South Africans came here.
Well, it's quite a large community now.
It's a very large community.
Yeah.
Well, Basil came as a result of him coming. Sandy and Howard Frasch came. Their cousins, Melanie and Neville, came. Neville used to work for my husband in South Africa. He was his apprentice. Mark and Fiona Lazaro came. So, I mean, I can draw a big circle and tell you how many of them came as a direct results.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So
you really are sort of the founding member of Roots to Boots.
we really were. We
Yeah.
were. I think Daryl Strelitz and David and the Cohens, Daryl Cohen and I don't remember her husband's name, they were the only other two South Africans that were here.
Wow.
We didn't meet any of them.
Was Saul Lurie here yet or not?
Saul came just about after us, just shortly after us or parallel to us. Now, Saul's son-in-law, Graham, was a tennis pro. He worked here, and my husband met him and said, Graham, come and work for me, I'll teach you the diamond business. So Graham worked for my husband, and he taught him the diamond business. So when I say that there were about 70 families, I really and truly mean 70 families.
That's amazing.
So
once this kind of group started to grow together, did you feel more comfortable being here in Dallas?
You know, we have always, both of us worked. We've had another number of companies. And one of the things about a lot of the South Africans were that many of the wives did not work, right? They'd never worked. They were involved in social, in bridge, and whatever it was. And quite honestly, that was not my scene. So we have a small group of South African friends that we're friendly with. The majority of our friends are people that we're comfortable with. They're Americans. They're people from all over the world, right? That we spend our time with. We do not seek out South Africans just because they came.
Right.
In general, it was a case of many people came and knocked on our door, either for a job or financial assistance or help. We did not come with a lot of money. We came with the ability to start a business and do very well. And so we worked at it, and whenever there was a financial need and somebody needed a helping hand, we were there, much more so than Federation. Federation at that point in time didn't feel that they were able to help the South Africans. So a huge number of South Africans came and knocked on our door for financial assistance, yes.
Wow. And what about the Dallas community in general? Do you feel well integrated into the general community?
But what makes you integrated into the Dallas community are a number of things. And I would say to you, the things that make you integrated are the organizations you get involved in, how much you're committed to be part of the community, and how you can help people. I mean, we are very involved, as I mentioned to you, in Texas Torah Institute. They are amazing people.
How did you get involved with TTI?
We have a very good friend, his name is Ivan Sachs, right? I've known Ivan. How Ivan and I met was following. I'm sitting in our little diamond office one day, and there's a knock on the door, and it's this young kid, and I mean he was a kid. He must have been 20. And he's got a yarmulke on his head, and he says to me, I want to speak to your husband. So I said, what do you want to speak to him about? He says, I'm collecting money. So I said, well, why don't you speak to me first and tell me what you're doing? So in a diamond office, you've got an exterior little office, and then you've got the proper office. So I let him inside, and my husband was traveling somewhere, so I said to him, sit down and tell me what the story is. So he said, look, there's been a war. There are a lot of young people that have lost limbs, and they need wheelchairs. And I'm raising money for the wheelchairs. So I said to him, Ivan, I don't generally like to give a lot of money because it goes in a bottomless pit and you never see where it went. He said to me, whatever money you give me, I will give you receipts on the wheelchairs, and I will show you, I'll take pictures of who got them. I said, you don't need to do that, your word is good enough. And that must be, I don't know, 30 years ago, 35 years ago. And we became very good friends. And through thick and thin, we've known each other. And one day he comes to me. I had been doing some commercial leasing because I was involved in some of our properties. And he said to me, there's a new rabbi coming to town, and I need to find him a place to live. So I said, what do you need? He says, I need a rental house. So I said, okay, I'll find a house. And that was Rabbi Roden.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yes.
So the first, you can ask him. I mean, the first place that Rabbi Roden ever lived, I leased him the house.
I know Rabbi and Henny very well.
Right, so you asked him. That's how far back it goes. And we became very good friends. And then Rabbi Roden had the dream of starting TTI. And one day Basil, Ivan comes to Basil and myself, and he said, look, we need some money. And we want to sign a lease, but somebody's got to guarantee it. So we guaranteed it. And then we brought one property. And then as it grew, Ivan came to us and said, look, we want to buy the property where the campus is now on Frankfurt Road. So he comes to us, and Basil said, okay, we'll buy it, we'll donate it. And he said, it's where a church is, and it's on, I think it's Davenport. Well, we didn't know which end of Davenport it is. He said, meet us there on Sunday morning. Well, the churches are both ends of Davenport. We went to the wrong church. And then eventually we saw it, but that's how that came about.
Oh my goodness.
And we love Rabbi Kaufman and Rabbi Pacht and Rabbi Ringelheim, so we've been very involved. They are extremely incredible young men.
Yes, they are.
And they've done a lot for this community. They've made the community grow. They've brought in a fortune of young people. And it's very different to a yeshiva in New York or in Israel, because these young men get a proper education, not only a Torah education, so that when they graduate, they are able to do whatever they want. If they want to be a lawyer, they can be a lawyer. If they want to be a nurse, like Rabbi Roden's one son is a nurse, right? They can be whatever they want to be. There's nobody pigeonholing them and saying to them, you've got to sit and study. They have the ability to do whatever their heart desires, and that's why we support it.
Well, that's a full-time charitable endeavor, but it sounds like maybe you're involved in other things also.
Yes, I'm involved in legacy. And we're very involved in the Holocaust Museum, the new Holocaust Museum. My husband's on the building committee and I'm on the fundraising committee, so we're very involved in that as well.
And so you're involved in this new project that Legacy has?
Yes.
I'd like to know more about that project in the South, because I've only heard a few little rumors. What can you tell me?
They're building a very new facility. We have an event on Thursday, if you'd like to come. It's called the Yes Event for Legacy. And we're going to raise funds, and we're going to build a very substantial building. We've got Legacy up north. We're going to do something similar down here. There's a need for it, and hopefully we will be able to fulfill that need.
That'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
It'll be wonderful, because we certainly need a kosher facility. We needed a kosher facility in the South for a long time.
Yeah. And the Holocaust Museum is going to be amazing. That's going to be absolutely amazing.
Where will that be located?
They bought a property and they've drawn up the plans. It's very close to where it is now.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it's very close. But, you know, you say to me, are we integrated into the community? We are involved in the Dallas community.
Yes.
And through these things, you get to meet a lot of people that you normally wouldn't meet.
Mm-hmm.
And people that do these kind of projects tend to be very nice people. They're very charitable people. They've spent their life working to have some financial security, but they realize that they have a social responsibility as well, so they get involved in projects.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that one of the things is a lot of South Africans have not got involved in these things. And it's very sad. I think it's to their detriment.
I think having listened to a lot of stories, I think you may be right. You may be one of the most involved of all the people that I've spoken to, and Kokomo for that.
Thank you.
Is there anything at all that you miss about South Africa?
You know, I think that what has happened, we still have family there.
Mm-hmm.
I think what has happened is that Jewish life in South Africa was really rich and good.
Mm-hmm.
It was very easy to be Jewish in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
It was very difficult to be Jewish in Dallas, Texas originally. Extremely difficult. And why I say that was we had some very tough experiences when we first arrived here.
Can you give me an example?
We arrived here in early September, end of August, early September. And the very first thing that I did was, we had been involved, when Basil and I got married, we were on our temple, our shul committee.
Mm-hmm.
We were involved in the shul organization. It was a big conservative congregation.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that we did when we came here was we wanted to get involved. So the first phone call I made, I looked in the phone book, Share with Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke to the lady. I said, look, I'm interested in buying some tickets, because that's how you did it in South Africa. You had to buy tickets for the Holy Day. She said, no problem. She'll put me on to the rabbi. Well, he chewed me out like you have never, ever heard. He said, you people are all the same. You think that by buying a ticket, you can come to shul for 4 days over the pace of the year and we'll never see you again. And why do you wait so late? I said, look, we've just arrived in Dallas, Texas. We've been here a week. The holidays are coming. We would like to have a place to go with our children. He says, well, we don't want these kind of people. So that was the end of Sherith Israel. We have never belonged to Sherith Israel, and we would not ever belong to Sherith Israel.
Where did you wind up going that year?
So what happened was we didn't belong to anything for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, through somebody I met through one of the kids' schools, told me about a very nice young congregation that was opening up. And their name was Anshe Emmet.
Mm-hmm.
And they were originally in a house off of Beltline Road. And so one Friday night, my husband used to travel every week, Monday to Friday. We had an office in Boston
Mm-hmm.
and one in New York. So he was always gone. He was never here. So one Friday night, I take these 3 kids, put them in the car, and we go. And the group of people there were unbelievable. They welcomed us. Gary, my son, is very hyperactive, was even more so then.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't mind. They welcomed us. They were incredible. And that's where 2 of my children had their bar and bat mitzvahs.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was too much. Whatever the kids wanted to do, they were fantastic. And then over the years, they moved to Plano. Obviously, I couldn't take 3 young kids to Plano, but I kept in touch with everybody. And then they said they were going to combine with
Anshe Torah.
Anshe Torah and create Anshe Torah. And we loved the Rabbi Anshe.
Mm-hmm.
And so we became members there. I was on the building committee, headed up that building committee. We were major fundraisers on that, major. We paid for the whole menorah in the front. We did a lot of the stuff inside.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we belong. But that was one of the first projects that we really got involved in from a social project.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only tell you that it was very meaningful and I met incredible people, loved working with all of them, and they're excellent friends today.
So I'm hearing that there isn't really anything you miss about home.
You know, this is home.
This is home now.
This is home. If you had to ask my husband what does he miss, he misses his chocolates. He gets them sent to him. But the South Africa we knew, there isn't that kind of South Africa anymore. The people we knew are scattered all over the world. We've been gone a long time.
Right.
So this is very much home. Would I go back to South Africa? Absolutely not under any circumstances. We go back to see our family. The best part of going back is to go into the game parks. But as for the rest, no. I know that some of the South Africans, they were given half an opportunity, would jump on the next boat and go back.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of them would.
Well,
But I think they limit themselves because the woman, you know, what it takes to make a good home is a wife that is supportive, and she goes out and does some of the things that her husband doesn't have time to do during the day. And then as a family unit, they embody those things. And I think that's where a lot of South Africans have gone very wrong. You know, a lot of them have not got involved in a lot of things. They see each other and they don't go any further. And I'll give you a very good example. They had an event for Jewish Family Services. So I kept on calling and saying, who's going, who's going? No, it's too far to go downtown. So I said, what do you mean it's too far to, no, it takes too long. It doesn't even enter my vocabulary. I go to Fort Worth, I go to Waco, I go to Austin.
Right.
I don't even think that downtown is far.
Right.
But a lot of people are very intimidated by it, so they don't go.
I understand.
So.
If you had some special words you wanted to leave to your children as a legacy in this interview, what would they be?
Well, we've been very, very, very blessed. We have 3 wonderful children. All 3 of them live in Dallas, Texas. We have 7 wonderful grandchildren. Of the 7, 5 go to Levine. I think the legacy that we want to leave them is the fact that they've got to be mentors, they've got to be involved, they've got to look at this as their community and not just as an outsider, and participate and share what you can. It doesn't have to be money, it has to be your time and your energy. My one daughter is very involved at Levine. She's on the fundraising, she's on the board. And my other kids know that they have community involvement. My daughter-in-law was also involved at Levine, so is my son. My other daughter is a physician, she lives a little bit further north, but she's also involved in all kinds of things. And I think what we as parents can give our children is a solid grounding. We've got to teach them good values. They need to know the difference between right and wrong and what it takes to bring up kids that are well grounded. You know, if you look around North Dallas, what you see is not the real world. It's a very affluent society. They think that everybody should have a car. They think that everybody should have nice clothes. They don't understand that this is the exception and not the rule. And they need to be exposed to the fact that it's not the rule, it's the exception. So we've tried to instill in them values of working in a food bank or going to do projects. My twin granddaughters are having a bat mitzvah in September. The one is a gymnast and she's doing a project. Her project for her bat mitzvah is raising funds for handicapped Israelis, children and people that don't have the ability to do physical exercise because of having a leg lost or an arm lost or losing something to cancer. So we try and instill good values in them.
Right. Well, it's been a real pleasure meeting with you. I've
Thank
enjoyed
you.
talking to you, enjoyed hearing your story.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to speaking with your husband as well.
Good. Well, I'll get him here. It's just a question of when. That's not
Well,
always so
we'll
easy.
work that out. Thank you so
Good.
much for coming in today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You do a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.